and began working away at the edges until they gained sufficient purchase to pull it free and lower it to the ground. Listening hard, he slid his hand into the hole and searched inside the cavity until his fingers touched the plastic bag he'd hidden there. He lifted it out and then replaced the brick before heading back to the sofa and making himself comfortable. As delicately as if he were handling surgical instruments, he removed the contents and placed them in a neat line in front of him. A tiny clip-seal plastic bag containing 3 small waxy rocks of crack, a glass pipe to smoke them with, and a lighter to heat them. Carefully, he set one of the rocks on the end of the homemade pipe, placing the other end between his lips and raising the lighter towards the translucent pebble, not rushing, enjoying the moment before his world changed, for a few hours at least, from rank misery to ecstasy. But as he drew his thumb firmly over the flint of the cheap lighter to produce a spark, his head snapped round. He was sure he'd heard a noise outside. Not the normal wild noises of the night he'd grown used to hearing, the screech of a catfight or the scavenging of a fox, but something different, the clumsy noise that only another human would make. For almost 20 seconds he sat frozen in place, his head cocked so that his ear pointed towards the entrance. He was beginning to doubt he'd heard anything until suddenly, terrifyingly, the sound came again. Unwary feet tripping over something on the ground. Another homeless person? Another drug addict? Someone who'd followed him or had been watching the garage waiting for his return? Someone planning to lay claim to all his prized possessions, maybe even the garage itself? In a panic, he scrambled for the 6-inch kitchen knife he kept under the sofa, squeezing its thick rubber handle hard, the feel of it in his palm calming him and making him feel stronger and less vulnerable. He reminded himself he'd been surviving on the streets since he was 16 and had yet to be seriously turned over or battered. If someone was coming for him, he'd give them what they deserved. He moved silently towards the entrance of the garage, hoping to startle his would-be attacker by suddenly calling out, "I don't know what the fuck you want, but I got a serious fucking blade. You fuck with me, I'll fucking cut you up, man." His bold words made him feel more confident and stronger, but it was a fragile power, fading by the second as his words met with silence. Again, he started to question whether he'd imagined the noise, or whether it might have been a stray dog looking for an easy meal. But until he could be sure there was nothing out there, he knew he wouldn't be able to relax and enjoy the blissful escape he had planned. Forced on by the need to know, he began to pull back the makeshift front door, continually cursing under his breath, until he was able to look out into the night, the darkness illuminated slightly by the glow of the city's lights. It had begun to rain. Freezing pellets of sleet lashed his face, stinging his skin and making it hard to see as he peered through squinted eyes. Blinking rapidly, he wiped the water from his face with a sweep of his hand and looked up to the starless sky, opening his mouth to catch a few drops on his tongue, like he used to do when he was a child. A smile began to spread across his lips until suddenly it was smashed away as something hit him hard across the back of the head. The blow, powerful enough to crack his skull and knock him semi-conscious to the ground, but not enough to kill him. His befuddled mind was struggling to work out what could have happened when he became aware that he was moving. Someone was dragging him backwards across the ground into the garage. There were no sounds of exertion. Whoever it was seemed able to move him with ease. He felt his lower legs being dropped to the floor, and moments later he heard the scrape of the board being replaced across the entrance, the noise of the rain outside fading to a quiet hiss. After a few seconds, he recovered enough to slightly open his eyes and was immediately aware that someone was circling him, first one way and then the other, like a tiger moving in on his prey. He tried to move, but instantly felt a kick to his stomach that made him double up with pain. As he lay clutching his belly and trying not to vomit, his assailant crouched by his side, and a gloved hand reached out to seize a handful of hair in a vice-like grip. His head was twisted around until he was looking into his attacker's face, but the features were hidden in the depths of his hoodie, so all Dalton could see were shadows, as if his torturer had no face at all. Even so, there seemed something familiar about the figure crouched next to him, although in his swirling confusion he